Hi everyone, a little bit of a strange weekend for us this one. Usually Celtic have a game either today or tomorrow. Of course, this week it is a Monday night, if that even still is the weekend, when we play Dundee United. So we're left with an extra day to fill this weekend, and rather than spending it chatting about current Celtic players and the way we're headed at the moment, I felt we'd do something a little bit different on today's video, and then tomorrow we'd discuss all of that and preview the game at Tannadice. Now, we all love Ange. I love Ange, you love Ange, pretty much everyone on this planet I assume loves Ange by now, but we're all kind of in this Celtic bubble, so we know why we love Ange. He's come into the club, transformed Celtic from a pretty dark place in the summer to where we're at now, with a trophy already in the bag, going for a Scottish Cup and 3 points clear in the league. So we love him, but what about people who aren't inside this Celtic bubble? What about people elsewhere in Scottish and even British football? We're going to discuss that on today's video and hear what some people have had to say about Ange since he's come into Celtic. So let's get going. Now, pretty much all of these excerpts that we're going to hear from various high-profile people have come recently. Clearly, a lot of people wanting to get in their good words for Ange, just in case, he manages to win the Premiership in his first season at Celtic. We're going to start with Marvin Bartley, who for me is one of the better pundits going around at the moment in Scottish football. He's also the assistant at Livingston, and he was full of good words for Ange after our meeting with them last weekend. Speaking in Clyde Super Scoreboard during the week, Bartley said, "I was lucky enough to get a couple of minutes with Ange after, and you just felt like you were in the presence of greatness. It sounds weird, he has that kind of aura about him. For me, if Celtic perform like that, there's not a lot you can do. It's one of those games I've watched back twice or three times because you need to learn from games like that." So Bartley, a guy who's currently an assistant manager at a Scottish Premiership club, a guy who was very recently a manager at a Scottish Premiership club, James McPake, has also had plenty of nice things to say about Ange, going back to when he was manager of Dundee and his various meetings with Ange this season. He was speaking on BBC Sports Sound lately, but I've also heard him on Sky Sports saying some nice things about Ange. He clearly rates Ange quite highly, and he's actually chatting about Ange's actual character here. So he says, "I think the 4-2 game at Dens, he must have spent about half an hour with me, which is rare nowadays with COVID because you don't go into the offices. He spent a bit of time and he spoke. It was just a bit of guidance, but he just came across as a really good footballing man who had a lot of time, particularly for younger coaches. I can't speak for anyone else, but certainly myself and my staff at the time were very impressed by him. I went away and spoke to a lot of people about it. I'll be honest, I felt very humbled. Celtic were flying at that time. He's a manager of Celtic, and no disrespect to Dundee, but I was a Dundee manager. He went out of his way to come and speak to me, so I'll be grateful for that, and it shows the type of man he is. There aren't enough in football that want to help you, in my opinion." Now, that kind of stuff there from McPake about Ange lending a hand to a young coach is exactly the kind of stuff we would have heard, 4 or 5 years ago when Brendan Rodgers was our manager. You used to hear stories about Brendan Rodgers inviting recently sacked managers into Celtic training. I think possibly Jack Ross. Did he have Jack Ross into training? And a few other managers who'd recently been sacked. And that's kind of what Ange is doing now. Maybe not to the exact same extent, but very similar in terms of how he's viewed. And that's a massive compliment to Ange, a guy who came into Scotland and people were, putting dates in their diary for when he would be sacked. But to fellow professionals like James McPake, he's clearly a guy who you can learn a lot from. And the same goes for Paul Hartley, a former Celtic player, of course, who is now the manager of League One leaders Cove Rangers. Now, he recently told the Daily Record, "I like Ange. I like the way he speaks. He's pretty honest and open when the team don't play well. He has done an incredible job, and the big thing for me is the recruitment side of it. That's the key for any manager going into a club. You're judged on your signings. He has managed to bring in some good players. It's good scouting, good recruitment." Ange's honesty is certainly one of the things that Celtic fans have grown to love about him, and it's interesting to see that it's that honesty that a number of people in this video have picked up on. Craig Levine is another one, recently speaking again on BBC Sports Sound. He said, Ange's interviews are backed up by what's happening on the field. I think he speaks sense every time I hear him talking about his team and the performances. He doesn't get carried away and he remains fairly calm, and these are good things for players. They need somebody in charge who is very sure about what they're talking about. They want to be able to buy into it, and he's certainly managed to turn things around here at Celtic. Yes, I've been very impressed with him. Very impressed. And going further afield, it's fair to say that probably Ange's crowning victory so far was that 3-0 demolition of Rangers back at the start of February. It was a night where it all came together for Celtic. It was the real essence of what Ange wants his teams to be that night, with the noise and the energy. And, you know, it all came together that night. And I think it's fair to say that that was the night that maybe people down south started to take notice of Ange. Jamie Carragher, being an obvious example, speaking on Optus Sport recently, said, obviously there's going to be a little bit of scepticism. Who is this guy? We don't know too much about him. But no, he's done brilliantly, culminating in the last Old Firm. We'll let you away with that, Jamie, where it wasn't just the result, it was the performance as well. They absolutely demolished Rangers in that game. It was one of those games where it doesn't always happen, where it felt like the whole of England was watching, and I think it just reminds everyone how big Scottish football is, certainly with the two Glasgow Giants. That recent derby victory certainly caught the eye of renowned tactical expert Michael Cox as well. He's written a couple of really good books on football tactics. He's probably the main kind of tactical football journalist, if that even is a thing at the moment. He mainly writes for The Athletic, who don't usually tend to cover Celtic games with regards to the kind of Michael Cox treatment, but they certainly did after our victory over Rangers. Celtic produced a performance that Gian Piero Gasparini's Atalanta would have been proud of. On paper, Postecoglou deployed a 4-3-3, but traditional notations aren't particularly worthwhile. The centre-backs, holding midfielder Callum McGregor and centre-forward Georgios Giakoumakis stayed in position, but the full-backs drifted inside, the wingers came short, and the number 8s broke into space in the channels. Rangers simply couldn't cope. So Celtic's performance clearly catching the eye of Michael Cox there, who wrote that. Now, not too many managers have been able to get the better of Ange in recent times. One guy who certainly did was Bodo Glimt manager Ketil Knutsen. He, as I say, let's be honest, thrashed Celtic and thrashed Ange over two legs in the Conference League, but still had time to pay credit to Ange and the philosophy that he's trying to put together at Celtic, saying the manager has done a great job with the team. What for me is the most interesting is how they play football. Celtic's DNA, I really think, is similar to Bodo Glimt. He's new in the job, he needs time. If you ask me, I've watched a lot of games and I really felt they have taken a lot of steps in the last couple of months. I think he and his team will be a very good team in Europe in the future. Now, going down south again, and Northampton Town manager John Brady is the only Aussie in the main leagues down in England. He said, I think the biggest thing that's given me a bit of a lift is Ange Postecoglou over at Celtic. I think it's great to see an Australian manager doing so well. He played a brilliant brand of football in Japan, and I think he's now ridden through a tough period in Glasgow. It just shows the grit and determination of the Aussies and what we can do tactically and technically. I'm throwing myself into this opportunity and giving it everything I've got. If I could get promotion with Northampton, this would cap it all off. And sticking with the Aussie angle, Australia boss Graham Arnold, who I believe his job is a little bit of a sugly peg with regards to the Socceroos. Earlier this year, speaking on Go Radio, he said, obviously I've known Ange for a very, very long time, and he's obviously doing a fantastic job at Celtic. He's doing Australia proud on the coaching front. He's a winner. I think that's one of the strengths of the Aussie mentality, is winning at all costs. Having that winning mentality and passing that down to the players, no excuses. His attention to detail is what it's all about, his passion for the game. He doesn't listen to any outside news. Ange has his way, and it's proven a great way. As I said, he throws a lot of belief into the players. So Ange is earning rave reviews. It's difficult for us to say anything that hasn't already been said on this channel, but it is interesting to note that he's made such an impression on some people who have only met him briefly. The top managers have an aura about them when they walk into a room. Now, I know that's a real cliched thing to say. I got that firsthand a few years ago when I was at a press conference with Brendan Rodgers for the first time. He walked into the room, and although he is quite a small guy, he kind of just ruled the room, if that makes sense. And you could tell when he entered the room. It's almost like a subconscious thing. And I certainly think Ange has a very similar kind of feeling. If he can have a similar kind of success, that would be amazing. We're going to get more and more of these really positive things said about Ange. As I say, the vast majority that we've had in this video have been recently. I predict that if he has even more success, more and more people will jump on the bandwagon, and that's not a bad thing at all. But the main thing will be how the players react and respond to what Ange is doing. And at the moment, it seems like it's going very well. Big tie on Monday night, Scottish Cup quarter-final, away to Dundee United. We will have a preview for you tomorrow. Me and Stevie will be doing that. But for today, I'm going to say goodbye. I hope you've enjoyed a little bit of a different video today. We'll speak to you tomorrow.